Crack free!
Crack free!
Crack free!
Crack free!
Keep North Carolina crack free!
Keep North Carolina crack free!
Now we're going to ask Chris Crum with the Institute for Southern Studies, one of my favorite organizations, to come on and let's hear from the Institute.
Good morning. Good morning. It is great to see everybody out here today. I'm Chris Crum. I'm with the Institute for Southern Studies. We are founded by civil rights veterans. We're a media and research organization. You've heard a lot about what's wrong going on today with the attacks on schools, on voting rights, and the democratic process. So the question is, where is this agenda coming from? Who or what is behind it? Well, as it turns out, there is one man who has a lot to do with what's happening in the halls of power right now, and his name is Art Pope. Now, who here knows Art Pope? Knows that name? All right. Well, it's glad to see so many hands because it has not always been that way. For years, Art Pope was one of Raleigh's best-kept secrets. He was the wizard behind the curtain, a big money power broker who operated in the shadows, spending tens of millions of dollars to buy influence, but he didn't want people to know what he was doing. We're working with others. We have pushed Pope into the spotlight, and now the public is getting to see more and more about what Pope and his money are doing to our state. We see that he spent $40 million over the last decade to bankroll extreme causes and politicians. We've learned about the political machine he's created, taking money from the treasury of his retail business, variety wholesalers. You've seen a Maxway or Rose's store. You've seen those stores. The money from there goes to fund these outside groups like Americans for Prosperity, Civitas Action, Real Jobs NC. And together, just those three groups, okay, just those three groups accounted for 75%, 3 out of 4 of the outside money that came flooding into our state legislative elections in 2010. And Pope's politicians won nearly 80% of those races, some by just a few hundred votes. The public knows more now about the right-wing network that Pope funds, almost single-handedly, that more than 85% of the income of all the leading North Carolina right-wing organizations, those attack groups, comes from Art Pope's foundation. You know about these groups: the John Locke Foundation, the Civitas Institute, the Pope Center for Higher Education and Policy. Nationally, Pope is a close ally of the Koch brothers. Who's heard of the Koch brothers? The billionaire energy tycoons from Kansas. Pope is a regular invitee of the Koch Billionaires Club at the swanky resorts around the country, and they put money into many of the same groups. Pope is Koch Jr. Together they run Americans for Prosperity, a well-oiled and, as you'd imagine, well-funded political attack machine. So what is Pope doing with all of this money? He is pushing an extreme agenda that wouldn't fly if he didn't have the money to make it happen. It includes working with some of the most extreme elements of the Tea Party, including a group that was so far off the charts, they actually got kicked out of the National Tea Party Federation for making racist comments and extreme statements. But that didn't stop Pope's groups from working with them. It includes being the architect of the push to dismantle Wake County's landmark desegregation policy in its schools. It includes bankrolling the push to write marriage discrimination into our Constitution. Pope has given more than $1 million to these anti-gay marriage groups, including the North Carolina Family Policy Council, which has been the leading group since 2004 trying to push that anti-gay marriage and marriage discrimination amendment. It is no accident that after campaigning on issues like jobs and the economy in 2010, all of a sudden the politicians magically got interested in the issue of voter ID once they came into office, which happened to be a top priority of the Civitas Institute and Americans for Prosperity. And it is no coincidence that in their midnight attack a month ago, this legislature singled out teachers for political payback, a group that was willing to call out Pope and his undue political influence in Raleigh. But here's the good news. People are fighting back. Over the last year, we have pushed Pope into the national spotlight. He cannot operate in the shadows anymore. And the more people learn about Pope and his agenda, the more they don't like that. We saw it here in Wake County when Pope tried to fund another slate of Tea Party candidates, and that agenda was repudiated here in Wake County. Pope has rightfully become the poster child of the 1% and big money's influence in our democracy. But the message is clear. Pope, you can't hide anymore. People can triumph over big money, and together we will defend our democracy. Thank you.
What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Hey, that's a good welcome for my next speaker, one of my very good